Tonight, we're back investigating a new case, and we're warning you right off the bat, parts of this story are hard to watch.
Yeah, this video shows officers on top of a man in the middle of the afternoon, in the middle of the summer, in the middle of a record-breaking heat wave.
That man has not been charged for this incident, but he spent more than a month in the hospital with third-degree burns.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. Just wanted to get on today and show you guys. I saw a video last night. I couldn't wait until tomorrow or even the next day to get this video out. What we're about to watch together is one of the most egregious examples of police abuse of a person and overreach and abuse of power to charge people that maybe you'll ever see in your life. I saw this video come over YouTube last night. It's just one of the worst. So the news story comes to us from out of Phoenix. Now, again, we've seen Phoenix riddled with problems. The Tyrone McAlpin case that John Bryan covered. Then we've seen the U.S. Marshals out of Phoenix falsely arrest a lady based on like a 25-year-old warrant or something. Completely cover it up. Completely not respond, no accountability whatsoever. The DOJ, as most of you probably know, is trying to intervene and take over that department. But this case comes to us now. It's 7-8 months old. It happened, I think, in March. And the lawyer is trying to get a hold of the body camera, cannot get anything. So we're going to watch it together just so you guys know what's going on out there. They literally, well, just watch and see what they do to this guy. The story comes to us from ABC News 15, Arizona. I'm going to play it all the way through, and then we'll talk about a couple legal points that I think they're going to try to use to cover their asses. But let's watch the video, and then we'll come back and chat about it.
SPD is under pressure. The DOJ wants to take over that department, and the city just made national headlines after we exposed officers punching and tasering a man who's deaf.
Tonight, we're back investigating a new case, and we're warning you right off the bat, parts of this story are hard to watch.
Yeah, this video shows officers on top of a man in the middle of the afternoon, in the middle of the summer, in the middle of a record-breaking heat wave.
That man has not been charged for this incident, but he spent more than a month in the hospital with third-degree burns. His attorneys say officers literally cooked him on the blacktop. We've blurred the pictures of those burns here, but we're going to show you more of that a little later in this story. Our chief investigator, Dave Biskuping, interviewed that man and also got that surveillance video.
So far, though, we don't have the body camera footage and police reports. That's why Dave is still investigating, and he's here now with the latest.
So far, Phoenix PD has issued a statement saying the case is still under both a criminal and internal investigation. And there's also a pretty significant twist we just discovered that we'll need to break down at the end of this report. What day did this happen?
July 6th.
Okay.
I believe it was like around 2 in the afternoon.
And it was pretty hot that day, right? Like 115 or something?
I believe it was breaking record, yeah.
Yeah. This is Michael Kenyon, and it was actually 114 on that day. And what happened left him with scars all over his body, up and down his arms, across his chest, on his legs, with chunks missing from his knees.
Just avoid the mirrors now. I don't even care to look.
It happened in a parking lot off 7th Street, just north of downtown. Surveillance video shows Michael on the phone walking to the store. That's when a police SUV pulled up behind him. He says the officers told him to come here, and he did.
So first of all, I was wrong about the timeline. So obviously this happened in July, not in March or April. So I just misremembered the timeline, but it's been July 6th. So in the middle of the summer, 115 degrees outside. But the first observation I would make is that they rolled up on him in very much the same way that the officers in the McAlpin case rolled up on him. The difference is that this guy isn't deaf, and he immediately kind of responded to whatever they said to him as they were rolling up and jumping out of the car. But they pretty much just rolled up and jumped out of the car in the same exact way. Maybe not quite as rapidly as the McAlpin case, but he turns around and responds to their verbal commands, and so they kind of confront him head on as opposed to just jumping him from the back like they did McAlpin because he didn't hear them.
I walked up to them and with my phone in the hand and said what happened or what's going on. I don't really remember what I said, but I came back. One officer grabbed my one wrist, and then the other officer grabbed my other wrist.
Before we go further, here's the backstory. Michael lives in a house close by, practically across the street. And according to Michael, his roommate had just reported a theft from their house.
So there was a theft situation going on.
Right, and he just...
But it wasn't involving you, right?
No.
A court record search shows Michael has a handful of misdemeanor cases in Arizona. 3 dismissed, 1 guilty judgment for criminal damage, and on this day, he had an outstanding warrant for a failure to appear. But Michael claims he didn't know he had a warrant. And police confirmed these officers didn't know about it either.
In my mind, too, I feel like deep down, like, because I think to myself, like, I had a bad past, I don't deserve a lot of good things in my life, so I'm like, maybe I did deserve this, you know?
That's the background. Now let's get back to what happened. Remember, we don't have body camera video, so we can't hear what's happening.
And then they told me, like, instantly in a like a mean, hostile voice, that they were saying, like, you're being detained, and I said, but I'm on the phone, what did I do? Like, I didn't do anything, please explain to me. And they're like, why are you getting antsy? Why are you, seem like you're nervous? And I said, I'm not, I'm just, you scared me, like, you told me I'm being detained and I didn't do anything. Can you at least explain to me? I want to sit down. Let me sit down. Like, look, I'm not trying to run. And I sat down on the back of some random person's truck tail.
I saw that, yeah.
About 15 seconds later, Michael stands. The video shows them struggling for about 30 seconds. Then more officers run up and take him down.
They said, give me your arm, stop resisting. And I think that's when like 5 people were on me. And I'm just screaming for help. I'm scared. I'm thinking like this is like the moment when, you know, George Floyd was literally like...
He told us he thought of George Floyd because they were kneeling on his back and neck, in addition to the pavement burning his body.
This is it. This is all. This is me. I guess this is where I'm going to stay at. You know, and
this is the end, you mean?
Yeah, this is the end.
Michael spent more than 4 minutes on the blacktop before getting handcuffed, then picked up and dragged to the police car. He said his skin was already bubbling and peeling away.
Can you describe the pain? Like, how bad was it?
Like going through hell in Hades, I guess you'd say. It's like, feels like your skin's melting off. The lady across the high-rise said that she thought an animal was dying, so that's why she looked out her window.
Firefighters arrived about 5 minutes after Michael was lifted from the ground. 7 minutes later, he was carted away and taken to the hospital.
The Phoenix police are demonstrating an utter disregard for human life. Sitting next to me is a young man whose skin has been burned to the 3rd degree because it was cooked on asphalt.
You feel like they cooked him on the asphalt?
Oh, they did. There's no doubt.
That's Bobby DiCello, one of Michael's lawyers. They're planning a lawsuit. They gave us the surveillance and cell phone video, but they say they have not been able to get the police reports either.
He had committed no crime and has never been charged with a crime, and he's spent over a month in a burn unit with police peeping through the windows to see what he was doing.
If true, that means Phoenix officers knew his condition was bad. And Michael says officers were there for days and often kept him handcuffed.
Like, what do you mean they were there?
They were just outside the room. They had like this little like clicker thing that's like a blind inside the window, and they just...
Parents of junior golfers between the ages of 10 and 16 who want to play college golf. What's big and blue, and it'll help your junior...
Wouldn't let me use my phone, contact my family, and it took certain cops to break the rules to let me use my phone.
He says police left after a friend called lawyers and they showed up at the hospital. Now, Michael was hospitalized for more than a month, first in a special burn unit, then in a rehab facility. He says the beginning was the worst, especially getting his dressings changed.
Just screaming at the top of my lungs, like wishing it was over, you know what I mean? I wouldn't wish it over.
Take a second. And you say you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Did you deserve what happened to you?
I don't think so, and sometimes I beat myself up thinking like, what could I have done to deserve this? And I still cry sometimes thinking that like I didn't do anything.
Do you think anybody deserved what happened to you?
Again, Phoenix says this case is still under criminal and internal investigation. And while the city didn't directly respond to our specific questions about why officers were stationed at the hospital, their statement did say Michael was taken to the hospital and officers learned he had a felony warrant out for his arrest. Now to that twist we mentioned earlier. We just learned that hours after we reached out for comment on this case, officials went to court and filed criminal charges against Michael Kenyon. Now, not for the burn case, not for the warrant, but for a different case. Now, we just pulled the new court file. It shows 3 charges related to a domestic violence case between Michael and his brother. Here's the timeline. That alleged DV case happened on March 12th. The burn incident happened in July. We reached out for comment on that burn case October 28th at 6 a.m. The new charges were filed 9 hours later at 3:17 p.m. Michael's attorneys just released the following statement. Quote, "We are still investigating this allegation. The timing of the charges is certainly suspicious, particularly given Phoenix PD's history, but we're reserving judgment until we complete our own investigation." His attorneys also represent the group of protesters who were targeted, arrested, and falsely charged as gang members. So those attorneys have a notable history with the city. We'll stay on top of all of this. For now, I'm Investigator Dave Biskobing, ABC 15, Arizona.
In response to the timing of those new charges, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office denied any conversation between their office and the Phoenix Police Department yesterday. A spokesperson says a prosecutor received the case October 2nd, 2024.
Isn't that rich that around the time that the news channel starts poking around for asking questions about this guy, that they magically come up with a domestic violence aggravated assault charge to levy on him from an incident that happened in March? That's where my timeline was screwed up. I remember that something happened in March. So March was the domestic violence incident that wasn't the basis for any charges up until now, right? Guys, these things do not take. The whole argument with domestic violence arrests and why there are so many domestic violence arrests that don't result in convictions is because most state laws, because of the lobbying effort of domestic violence victims and that kind of thing, require an arrest immediately upon credible corroborative evidence. So if the police officer gets called to the scene, and that's another reason why they're allowed to get by with so much as far as kind of like pushing their way in the interest of public safety or protecting a domestic violence victim. There's a lot of leeway with law enforcement being able to sort of force their way in if they have some reason to believe that somebody's being harmed inside. And a lot of that is based on the domestic violence lobby. But that doesn't stretch itself out for 7 months so that you can file charges magically when people start asking questions. It's just completely ridiculous. Now, the city of Phoenix is going to try to hinge their defense on this idea that he had a warrant, but you got to keep this in mind. In order to stop somebody and physically detain them, you have to have, as we know, reasonable articulable suspicion that's based not on a non-particularized hunch, but that a crime has occurred and that they are the person that's involved in the crime, right? So what we know is that we now have 2 particular cases in Phoenix, the Tyrone McAlpin case and this case, where you have this sort of flimsy allegation. And again, the roommate didn't even accuse him, according to him. Now, we don't know all the facts, so we have to reserve judgment on that. But the roommate didn't even accuse him, according to him, of stealing. But you don't know what the roommate told police. But either way, you have to do some sort of investigation before you just go snatching people up. And apparently that's not what they do in Phoenix. As soon as somebody points the finger and says, hey, that guy did that to me, or whatever, they just go snatch people up, and you just can't do that. So you have to remember that reasonable articulable suspicion, it is true that they will take the viewpoint of a perfectly objectively reasonable officer, and they will apply that standard to the situation at hand and do sort of a look back to see whether it was reasonable to act the way the officer acted. But the most important part of this is that they use the objective, reasonable officer based on what the officer in question knew at the time. So you don't get a brand new, fresh, perfect officer that gets all the facts later and gets to apply those facts. They use the decision-making of a perfectly reasonable and objectively reasonable officer based on what the officers involved knew. And so that's why it matters that they didn't know about the warrant. They didn't know at the time that they started snatching him up, grabbing him, putting him on the ground, any of that. They did not know that he had a warrant at the time, and the police have acknowledged that. The other thing they're trying to do is they're trying to bring charges on him so that they can say there's an active investigation and we can't say anything about it, so that they can hide from this. And then they're trying to to do the same thing, you noticed at the end of that video that they said that the county attorney had also said there's a pending investigation and they can't say anything. So everybody's hush-hush. Nobody's wanting to come off of any information, all based on these new charges that Phoenix PD has brought. The problem for them is that those new charges are not related in any way to this separate July incident. And so ultimately what will happen is the judge is going to have to order them to come off of this body camera footage. And so this one's going to have layers to it, and it's going to have some follow-ups and some updates that are going to happen. In closing, I am so sick of this, man. I'm ready to see people go to prison. I want to see officers who do this stuff go to prison. If anyone had done this to a person, it doesn't matter what this guy's accused of doing. Whatever he's accused of doing is not nearly as bad as what the police did to him in the process of forcing him to involve himself in whatever it was that they were trying to force him to do when they didn't have what they needed in order to arrest him. And it all is predicated upon him just standing up when they decided that they weren't ready for him to stand up. So the idea that you can put somebody on the ground in 115-degree heat and just cook them for 4 minutes, like, guys, like, you cook a piece of meat on each side for 4 minutes. I mean, it's insane. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of stuff this is one of the most egregious things I've ever seen in my life. You want to talk about damages? We talked about damages in our last video. This person has damages. This person has damages. They're traumatized emotionally for the rest of their life. Their body is disfigured for the rest of their lives. This guy's going to be paid millions and millions of dollars over this case. So we're going to follow it. We'll keep up with it. We'll try to keep you guys up to date. I hope somebody like Lackluster or John Bryan picks this story up and broadcasts their version of it, because they just have a huge audience, and I don't yet. They have millions of people that'll see this. So I hope somebody like San Joaquin, Lackluster, John Bryan, We the People, I hope those guys jump in and do a video about this so it can get in front of more eyeballs and maybe get some more pressure. But, you know, the Phoenix can't be more pressured than it is right now. It's just, they're just running with they're just doing as much as they possibly can to cover up and be corrupt. And you got to keep in mind, everybody's answer is, well, the DOJ, let's go in and let the feds take it over. Well, the DOJ is the department that's responsible for the U.S. Marshals task force out of that area, did the exact same thing to a lady like a month ago, where they arrested her and put her in jail and all this stuff, like a 60-some-year-old woman. So we may do a story on that at some time too. But anyway, thanks guys. Thanks for watching. I'll put up the PayPal link and the Venmo link if you guys want to donate. If you don't, no big deal. No obligation. Don't expect anything from you. But we'll put those up for you in case that's your position. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment on the video. Check out some of the other videos on the channel. Leave a comment on there as well. We'll see you guys soon. Until I see you again, take care. Always film your interactions with the police and keep your evidence to yourself.